I see both. I got recording message and live stream message.
Okay, I'm admitting everybody in.
Yep.
Ben, you're proud of me that I'm able to do this?
Yeah.
I see both. I
Yeah.
got recording.
Just gonna let people come in.
Hello, all. Everybody in? I think we're going to start unless there's any objections. I do see some people trickling in. But I'm going to let Nadia had an interesting observation. She's a member of our Nadia Levy, member of the committee. I'm going to let her open because I think it might summarize well what parents felt. And Tunisia had some similar observations as well. And then we're going to let parents speak. We do have with us Benjamin Morden and Daniel Egoroff, who are CC members who did moderate but didn't get a chance to speak. I will introduce them in the middle, into the mix in the middle, to hear what their summaries were from their breakout rooms, since that wasn't shared. But I'm going to let parents speak first. Nadia, kick it off, please.
Hi, everybody. So basically, the gist of what I got from that meeting was that they were saying, this is what will happen. We have no specific blueprint or plan. We just want to hear from you, the parents. But despite what you say, no matter what you say, we will disregard, and this is still going to happen. Because in our breakout room, we were essentially all saying that we were skeptical of it, and there were no answers. And it didn't seem like that was really going to be taken into account in the end. So that's what I got from this.
Tunisia, you want to add on?
Yeah, there were a lot of parents who also felt the same way, who felt, I was actually in the room with Lisa, and we both felt that gifted and talented should continue. And if they want to create brilliant and test it, they should. We felt that every school should have some sort of acceleration, and you shouldn't break, don't break if it's not, don't break if it's not, and fix it if it's not broken, right? So keep what we have and let us continue and get acceleration into every school. I am a child of acceleration myself, and that's what I said to them. And as a Black woman, everybody wants to be in a good school, in a quote unquote good school. Everybody wants their kids to have the best. And if you make every school the best, then there's no need to fight over programs like Gifted and Talented. But the real issues are being skirted to hide behind yet another thing. And someone in Lisa and I, someone in our group said, kept saying, it's just a new catchphrase. It's just the next catchphrase. So I really want to hear what parents have to say and, figure out together, how can we make sure that every school becomes a good school, every school is funded properly and well-staffed and gets our students what they need to be successful.
Thank you, Fire. I'm sorry. Thank you, Tisha. That was really important, what you just said. I think a lot of us felt that in our groups, we experienced something that was discussed and profound and not reported back accurately. So I'm going to go directly to questions unless anyone else wants to add anything. You know what? I'm just going to go to questions. Tom Rockledge, you had your hand raised, I think, first. So let's go with you.
A common theme in my group was with the new Adams administration, what is the likelihood that this will be rolled back? I was wondering if you had any insight on that. And I mean, obviously the DOE does not really care what the parents in our district think, nor does it care what the Community Education Council in our district thinks. If they did, they'd look at the multiple resolutions. So obviously that was disingenuous, so it was a ruse. But I guess my question is, with the fact that they don't respect our Community Education Council, have you thought about doing anything outside that, like ballot initiative wise, something that they would actually have to listen to? That's up for anybody in the CC.
We've had ideas.
I have one in particular, but I'm reluctant to share it with such a large group.
Yeah. We can talk offline about that. We've brainstormed, and we welcome more brainstorming, but we are getting frustration from many people across the district and across other districts who would like to band together and come up with some plans. And in our group, we did also have that same question about, why are you doing this now so hastily when Adams takes office in a few weeks? Like, what are you trying to accomplish? That was definitely a question that clearly wasn't brought up or answered. Let's take another question.
Can I just make one comment? Because Tom Rockledge brought up a good point. And I think the reason why we are here today and why we were here earlier is because of what CCD2 did. And then there were a lot of other councils who followed up with that, where we were asking for engagement. And especially this committee here spent a lot of time rallying others to, you know, to tell the DOE, speak to us. Now, that wasn't, the initial plan wasn't, you know, give us the brilliant NYC and let's bypass everything else, you know, that works. So it was, you know, it became political, but obviously, but I think there are things that they are listening to. I do know for a fact that that we've been heard on some other topics. So, you know, and I know we do have a nice working relationship with our superintendent, but, you know, there are layers here. And you're right, Tom, you know, we have to, you know, we have to think of other things to be heard, you know, properly. But we were here today because of what this committee did. I mean, they had a meeting with 500 people, and, you know, they reached out, and then other councils, 26, 20, 30, they you know, they wrote similar resolutions. And so I don't think we should all be frustrated. I mean, this is opportunity. And the reason why I wanted to be a facilitator is because I spent 2.5 years trying to talk about education, and we spent so much time on other things that with such marginal benefits, you know. And so I'm glad that we're talking about education, because if we can improve schools, then we're all winning. But we have to do it smart. I mean, you don't want to destroy great schools too. So, but I don't want to take, let other people go.
Thank you for saying that. I also want to say, Tom, one more thing. The DOE does know about these meetings, and they are listening to them because they come to them and they report back to us on them. And sometimes they're not happy about them. And that to me is a good sign that, you know, they're aware that there are people who are pushing back and not just willing to accept whatever they put out there. So I encourage you to keep speaking up. We read on the platform of listening to parents and helping share their voices, and we will continue to do so until we're no longer able. So keep asking those tough questions. So I didn't see who was next. Did anyone see on our
Tiffany Ma, I believe, is next. And just, I want to clarify this. We're not very prescriptive here. You guys want to speak and share your thoughts, do so. If you want to pose a question to a CEC member or anyone else here, committee member or anyone else, really go for it. We're not the DOE. Do what you want. Tiffany.
Thank you. So along with Nadia's point and to Tom's point, I did not, the reason why I did not feel it was a true engagement was, hello? Sorry, is there, I'm hearing several, but okay. The reason why I did not feel that it was a true engagement was because out of the spirit of respect, I asked a very academic question that was rephrased to something that was not the question I asked. The question I asked is, if we are to accept that somehow there's a way for 65,000 incoming kindergarteners to be in, to have accelerated education, and we're dealing with kids across potentially 10 different levels of learning, what is the teacher-student ratio? What is the PhD analysis and research that proves that one teacher can do this across potentially 30, 40, 50 kids? And that was my question. And it was rephrased to, what is the best ratio to establish the success of the accelerated program? So the question was not, is this possible because we have a certain number of students across the schools? The question became rephrased to, how can we make it work out? So it's troubling to me because I don't know that there was PhD or any kind of analysis as to the viability of one person doing accelerated education across 10 different levels, such that the child who would get what's on the board the first day versus a child who will never get it all year will have access to the same education. So I feel like that, not having gone through that step of having even done the research or produced the academic results of that analysis, is very troublesome, and that it was immediately changed to, well, what does the ratio need to be? But that didn't seem like a genuine question, because we have the certain number of students that's going to every school. So, so what do we do to address the fact that this analysis is missing?
Fire, do you want to go next?
Chris, you're on mute.
Hi, everybody. Excuse me, I was just eating. In my group, what I would like to share this evening is that a lot of us had mentioned, oh, by the way, I was in the same room with Robin as well. Hi, Robin. But what we share most importantly is that it's important to save the GNT program and also to keep it in our schools. And for me, what really affected me, what really touched me most importantly is that if GNT was no longer in our schools, as a general education parent, that it would affect the entire school. And why? Because we all share the same resources. We're all, we're all one school body for the most part. And not only that, it affects every background, everyone from African Americans, Hispanics, Caucasians, like whatever their background is with our children, it affects all of our children evenly across the board. So my whole thing was fighting for GNT, keep it in our schools, making sure that we all have the same funding, share the same funding, and have the same resources so that our children still benefit from that. And also to add that, something that Robin had mentioned, if you don't mind me shouting out, I'm Robin, about de Blasio. Why is it that they're bringing something up with him at the last minute where he's not syncing with Adams to make sure they keep that program? Because we need that for our kids. We're all affected. So I just wanted to bring that up. Thank you, everybody, for listening, and thank you for your time. I appreciate all of you.
Our moderator didn't mention any of that. Just thought that was interesting.
Thank you, Fire, for your comments. I think Lisa had, I don't know if she had her hand up, but she asked a question earlier, how to sign up. So I'm inclined to pass it to her.
Hi. Let me just turn on my video. I asked a question in our breakout room that was specific about the plan is very clear that they're going to train the kindergarten teachers, but there's never been any information about what happens at first and second and third grade level and what those teacher training might happen or might not happen. Because obviously with the current GNT program, you were able to apply in first grade, second grade, third grade, and you were able to get accelerated education for your children at those grade levels. But we have heard no details whatsoever about, other than kindergarten teachers being trained, what the training will be for the other teachers in other grades to provide this quote unquote accelerated experience to students, whether it's differentiated or whatever enrichment they envision, but we have no information about whether first or second or third grade teachers are going to get this training next year. So that was my question, and it was not addressed at all. And the moderator, like, she said she was going to summarize my points, but then that didn't really happen at the end of the meeting.
Thank you, Lisa.
That's helpful.
Yeah, I would point out in my room that only 2 people got to actually speak. 2.5 people got to speak, and then we were abruptly kicked out without warning.
Yeah.
Craig,
Liana, do you want to go next?
I'm sorry, Craig, do you actually know what who raised hands in what order, or are we?
Yeah, Elizabeth Cernoff Kapoor would be next. And I'm going to unmute you. And then
Hi.
Hunter, I'm sorry, then Hunter, you'll be next.
Hi, I'm going to be really quick because I'm actually standing on a street corner going into an event. But my concern, and I just put it in the chat, was that their language felt very deliberate. And it's almost as if they're taking Eric Adams's agenda where he's saying that he wants to expand GT, and they're kind of capitalizing that and calling brilliant the expansion of GT. They're going to make everybody, they're going to, expand it to every child. That my concern was that this, and I think everybody shares the same concern, that this was very deliberate. I'm wondering if anyone knows what Lauder's, like if anyone has a way of talking to, or if we've thought about plugging into Lauder's PR people, because there was a Times article that was forwarded about a big philanthropic effort going into expanding gifted education. And I wonder if our efforts, and I mean, I can certainly ask people I know if I know anybody that could be helpful to see if maybe we could try to plug into them and maybe take a slightly different route here. And I appreciate all the work that's been done. I just feel like they're really, this was a pure manipulative, deceptive move that happened tonight. And that's really what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Elizabeth, to answer your question, yes, we do have one contact into Lauder. Don't want to put her on the spot, but that is something that's being attempted to be leveraged. But if there are others, people should definitely do that and go for it. It is a good idea. It is one that we've thought of, and it is one that we're trying to explore. But more contacts are always better than fewer.
So next we have Hunter, and then Ileana, you're on deck.
Hi, thank you. And by the way, I am the co-chair of Place NYC's G&T working group, who is trying to put together a proposal for Eric Adams and trying to maintain gifted and talented programs within the city. And so to the extent that people have contacts into the Lauder organization, would love to see those. We are also contacting other people around the country that are concerned about accelerated education. And so want to, certainly I'll put my contact info in the chat, and anybody's welcome to reach out to me. Second thing, just wanted to talk, I mean, I felt heard definitely in our breakout room. At the same time, our breakout room was kind of uniformly in favor of maintaining some kind of gifted program, or people just had questions. Nobody spoke kind of against it. I don't think anybody was against the things that we're doing in Brilliant either. And personally, I think that those are great ideas. Every classroom should have enrichment, and every classroom should do real world problems, and every classroom should offer opportunities for differentiation. But that doesn't preclude you a system still serving the most advanced learners with opportunities to accelerate. And I think what they couldn't answer, and I think our moderator was not ideological really at all. She was like, I'll take that question back to the DOE. And it's just that, she was unsure what the program is going to look like. And I think to answer a question from earlier, it was quite clear that Brilliant is not going to accelerate and really accelerate until the third grade. It's all about from K-2 to explore people's individual strengths and their interests and do those things. And there's a real concern, particularly with Black and Hispanic and Latino kids, with ELL learners, with twice exceptional kids, that these kids may not get identified and they may not have access to outside resources beyond their school. And if they're not identified through the DOE system until third grade, are they going to continue to be performing at the level that they're at in kindergarten, or is there going to be a gap that gets created between kindergarten and third grade when there's kind of this official identification of kids? And I think the research is very good that their identification before kindergarten can be unstable, and we need to have movement both in and out of these programs in multiple years. But we do need to serve those kids that need this kind of education at an early time. And I was really disappointed that the kind of principals that the couple people that reported back from their groups, either their groups were people that put together specifically to have one opinion, or they didn't report back fairly on their groups, because literally everybody in my group was pro G&T in one way or another. So thank you.
Thanks, Hunter. Next is, thank you for your comments, Hunter. Much appreciated. Ileana, I'm going to unmute you.
Hi.
And then,
hi.
sorry, Casey, you're next.
Hi, thanks. So I don't want to repeat everything that was just said. I want to, I have like 5 talking points from my group. One of them was, I really called them out on this whole statement that they made about it takes a village, but you didn't consult the village. You didn't talk to the village. You just did what you did, and you guys rolled this out, because of the whole G&T, and, and I said it, whether it's going to get recorded or not, like I said it. The second thing, kind of talking to Tiffany's point about the teacher. And so we had in our group, I was actually in Hunter's group also. And I think it was just Hunter and I were back and forth on a couple of points, but really talking about, this idea that there's going to be this magic Wonder Woman teacher who's going to know how to handle an accelerated child and a child with a learning disability, and then the regular child, and teach a curriculum. Like, that is not, it's just not reasonable to ask a DOE teacher unless they have a plan for that. So I called them out on that too. What's the plan? You talk about this blueprint. We haven't seen a blueprint. We've seen all these great big ideas, but these big ideas are ideas that, if it's so easy, it should have been done from the beginning. From day one of bringing up a school, these things should have been implemented. Why are you all of a sudden waking up and thinking that you could do this? There's no plan. There's no real plan. Showing these slides, doing sticky notes, doing a Padlet, and doing a Jamboard. It's just confusing people, doing it on a day. De Blasio did the same thing with the homeless from Lucerne to Radisson. They did it on Rosh Hashanah holiday. They did it on a 3-day Friday, sneak it in. Maybe no one will notice. The problem is the D2 parents are noticing, and we are, and the problem is we've had a lot of parents already leave. We've had a lot of teachers leave. So I'm going on a tangent. So the other thing that we talked about was, with the teachers, what happens to a school like ours, like PS 33? I know that we had PS 33 is a new G&T school. It was a bad school until Lenore Lindy took it over and put the G&T program. The first time the middle schoolers went, they got 80 something % of kids got their first choice of middle school. What happens to that school? That it's in the middle of nowhere, that people travel to from all over the city to go to this school. And the gen ed benefits, everyone benefits. The PTA, supports it. Both of my children have gone there. And so what happens to that school? So again, The moderators were the vice principal of Wagner and another teacher who didn't get a breakout room. They took notes. They seemed very interested in a few of the points that Hunter made and I made because they were writing rigorously. And we tried to put as much as we could into the Jamboard so that it would be in writing. But I think somebody had mentioned before earlier also that some of these things have not come to, light. So I think that we just need to keep speaking out about it. It really is not about elite, they want to call us progressives, elitists and racists, whatever. I'm as brown as anybody else. I came from, I had the luck of having an enrichment program when I was younger, but it's about bringing that enrichment program to everybody. Everyone should have access to it, but don't come and call it brilliant or G&T. Like maybe, I know somebody else also mentioned that it's just a moniker and just they're calling it these things. Have a real plan, and they don't have one. Carranza had a chance to do it, but he became a puppet and he didn't do anything. Useless, waste of space. Now we have a chance to really turn things around. How do they do it? Prove to us that you deserve to have us in the school system. That's really what it comes down to. So, but to say that everyone needs the same education, everyone deserves a good education, and every child deserves to have an enrichment program, a higher level of learning, extra help if they need it. Whatever it is, it should be accessible to the greatest city in the world, right? That's it. Mic drop. I'm done.
Thank you, Ileana. Appreciate it. And I can tell you in my group also, we brought up PS 33, the same issue that you brought up, and we did talk about that. So next up will be Casey, and then after Casey will be Tracy. Casey, I'm going to unmute you. Try it again. Yep.
Okay, I think I'm muted. So I wanted to first talk to Lisa Marks's point because I asked a similar question in my group. Our moderator was talking, about the training that teachers were going to get for kindergarten and the plan that was being put in place for kindergarten. I have a 6th grader, where all screening and honors and AP have been 100% removed. And so all the kids are in mixed ability classes. So I asked, are you giving training to teachers in other grades in how to do this differentiation and provide these accelerated learning opportunities? And the moderator said no. Only kindergarten teachers are receiving this kind of training. And then so I said, what is the plan for middle schoolers where screens have been removed? And he kind of hemmed and hawed and said, in a nutshell, he was sure that somebody was giving them some kind of training. I spoke at the meeting on November 9th, but I just want to reiterate that, this plan is already in place in middle school. G&T has already been completely removed, and it's a spectacular failure. If you want to know what this plan looks like, it looks like gifted kids sitting bored out of their minds, not being given opportunities to write, not being given opportunities to learn new math, just waiting, while other kids catch up. And the last thing I'll say that really upset me about this meeting and the way that, the city is talking about, gifted kids is that they really just belittle the concept of academic giftedness. They're saying everybody has gifts. We need to test kids and, to change our tests in ways that can identify everybody's gifts. And, we'll teach them that way. And for those of us, who have truly, academically gifted kids, we know that having a kid who is, just naturally a very, quick learner or just ahead, in subjects is not the same thing as having a kid who's like a good cook, or like good at baseball or something. I mean, when it comes to the classroom, and it's not like, oh, we'll give a little bit to the kids who are good at learning, and we'll give a little bit to the kids who are, good at baseball. We'll let them read books about baseball, and we'll give a little bit to the kids who, like art, we'll let them do some extra drawing. No, I mean, these are kids who have substantial needs. And if you fail them, you're failing them. Anyway, it makes me crazy. It's not a little nothing, cute thing to be, gifted academically and just completely ignored in your classroom. Okay, I'll stop. I'm done. Thank you guys. But I really appreciate this meeting and, giving us all a chance to talk. And I do hope somebody will hear us and listen to us. So thank you.
Thank you, Casey. Appreciate it. Tracy is on now, and Virgil, you are on deck.
Hi, yes. Well, this whole G&T and this brilliant New York City, the brilliant New York City, I was just in the meeting, I think is a joke. It's pretty much, they're just putting a sticker over G&T and calling this, the brilliant NYC. I've experienced where my son, we did remote learning the entire pandemic, and he's in the G&T program. And when they did the co-ed, when they did the G&T and co-ed, together, he was so bored because they were learning sight words that he had already learned in kindergarten. And, this is the example of, if they remove this G&T program, it's just going to destroy these kids who are really born with gift and born with some, talent. And de Blasio, I'm sorry, but he's just a moron in general. Okay, he's a complete moron. Okay, no one is born the same. Just like any sports, if you ask him, okay, about sports, he can tell you, LeBron James is not the same as some other guy, Joe Schmo. So if you have talented people who are in sports, who's in sports in any kind of, and musicians, so why are you telling everyone that all child are born the same, should have the same education? They don't, they shouldn't. Why should my child be, held back because you think that, the other kids, because the parents don't want to, take the extra step to help their child exceed. I have an example here. I know that schools in general, they get funding from how many students are in the school, correct? Based on the occupant. So I think I experienced it once where the principal did not hand out booklets about the G&T program. Okay, and I think that's what's causing also parents not being aware of this program. And I find that it's because if she loses students, she's going to lose the funding for that school. And when my son transferred out of that school and he was in another school, the principal hand out every child a booklet about the G&T program, when the test is going to be, given, some pamphlets, some test samples. When I asked a friend of mine who was in the previous school, did this principal hand those booklets out to all the students? She's like, no. So she didn't know anything about that program until she asked the principal. And guess what? The following day, she handed out all the booklets to every student in that school. So to me, I find sometimes the principal is at fault because she's afraid to lose fundings. And then when I had spoken to the teacher that I'm pulling my son out of that school, and because he got accepted to a G&T program, the teacher itself, okay, tried to discourage me and told me that, oh, there's testings, that shows that it doesn't, it's like, oh, that homework and everything doesn't help the student. And I know my son, he needs that structure. He needs that push. And and I see it because when he was home, he was struggling. He needs to have that, that teacher who is very firm and pushes. And I think the principal itself in certain school are doing on purpose, and they're jeopardizing some of these students who deserve it, because And I've spoken to other parents in other districts in the Bronx. They did not even have a slight idea what is a G&T program. It's because the principal is supposed to hand out these booklets to the school's supposed to hand these out to the parents so they can be aware of the program, and that way they can prep their child did what I did, buy brain quest booklets, workbook, help them. But if the parents don't know, how are they going to do that? How are they going to be able to help the child excel if they don't even know that this program exists? And it's just very upsetting. I mean, why take this program away during your final month when you have other things that you should worry about that's even more severe, crime and everything, but you want to take away something that's so important to these kids? It does not make sense to me at all. I mean, there's got to be someone else who can help. Bloomberg, he is for education. He's for the G&T program. Can't we have him, our old mayor, come and assist with this? I think he has a huge influence in New York City. I mean, just from looking at him, I mean, he's a brilliant man, and I think he can help not just only Ronald Lauder, but Bloomberg himself. But like I said, I think the principal has something to do with not being able to, provide that proper information to these parents, to the students. And I find that it's for personal agenda, not for the parents or the students, but for their own school, for their own purpose, so that they don't lose the fundings for that school. And some of these principals should be investigated, because I myself had experienced it, when my son was in that particular school. I'm not going to mention it, but when he was in that school, not once, not the 2 years they did not even provide any kind of information about the G&T program. The only reason why I knew about it is because my niece and nephew was in the program, and my older daughter was in it. So that's how I knew. But had my sister not told me about it, I would have never known. I would have never registered my kids to take the test. So again, I think some principal have something to do with this. The students not being able, and to say that it's a racist thing, it's a privileged thing. It's not, because I didn't spend $1,000. I didn't need to. I didn't push my kids, and that's all I have to say. But like I said, the Blossom needs to leave, and he's just a moron.
Thank you, Tracy. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Virgil, and then after Virgil will be Paul, and then Julie.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having this. I guess whatever I want to say or could say has already been said by the people, but I just would like to say that the Brilliant meeting was an absolute joke. I have no idea what the point of that was. I mean, I know that the principals were monitoring the breakout rooms. Obviously, that's not, principals have nothing to do with the DOE or setting policy. So I don't understand what was the point of that. Like, it would be unreasonable to think that they would carefully understand first of all, I don't understand the point of the breakout room. After that, the people who were moderating it were just hand-holding us. I mean, they're not there to understand the breakout rooms discussion, or to transmit it to whoever was doing the thing. And then the other thing, the whole presentation for the Brilliant blueprint, whatever, there was no specific, there's no details about what the program was for, or what it's supposed to do, and how like Lisa mentioned, that it just sounds like a regular classroom. It's whatever, it's just adding buzzwords to new buzzwords, or refreshing it with better buzzwords for whatever should already be happening in the classrooms. And I mean, I'm lucky enough that my son, their school already does that for the general education, for the G&T portion. It's just, I don't understand. The whole presentation was not engagement. It's not serious discussion. It was just I don't know. It's like a pep talk for bull. I don't want to use bad words here, but basically that. And I echo. I mean, I just hope that something substantive can happen to reach out to DOE, to the mayor, to the next administration to do something. And hopefully you guys have good ideas. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Virgil, for your comments and your thoughts on that. So we're going to go to Paul, and then after Paul will be Julie. Paul, you should be able
Hey,
to speak.
everybody. I have a pre-K son who's going to be, going into kindergarten. And, I just want to start with a little anecdote. I was interested to see how these presentations, engagements, community meetings, whatever they're calling it at any particular time, how they contrasted with each other, because they've been it's been difficult even figuring out the details for each meeting. And we're in District 2, very well organized. I know about this because my son was at a DOE pre-K center on 76. They blasted out the info. We're at PS6 now. There was no email that went out with that PDF that DOE created. So anyway, I was calling around to see if I could get the logins for these various meetings. And I was trying to get them from schools. So I'd call up the school and I talked to someone, as high up as I could go, usually the principal. And most of these schools didn't send out the information, even alerting teachers. They didn't know anything about it. But the striking thing was when I called the school in District 12, that's the Bronx. The principal answered the phone. And I said, well, if I was in District 12 or moving there and I wanted to get on this community meeting, because supposedly there's one for every district, did you send out the information? Can I have the information? She said, no, we're not sending it out. It's not really relevant to us. And I'm not exaggerating. Her exact words were, historically, we don't have any kids in these programs. We don't have a GNT program in District 12. And I said, well, what about every kid's got an opportunity to take this test and potentially get into one of these citywide schools? And she said, well, historically, we don't have any kids that do that. And I was just, my jaw dropped. And there you go. I mean, you want to talk about why there's a lack of diversity. There's no engagement with these other schools. So if I had to just sort of talk about, well, let's in practice recognize there's no plan. It's a blueprint with 5 talking points. I took a snapshot of that slide. That's the blueprint. Blueprint, when you're going to build a building, that's when you say, where am I going to put the building? What's the general sense of it? There's your 5 bullet points. And then when you say, okay, now let's come up with a blueprint has enough detail that experts can weigh in. Experts can criticize it, build on it, decide, is this building going to stand up and be able to weather a storm? And you can literally then bring a construction crew of experts together and build based on the blueprint. There's no blueprint. They're asking us to react to a plan that doesn't exist. So I think the reason is because this is all a reaction. De Blasio had never had a plan and got this opportunity to go out the door pretending he tried to do what he promised, which was eliminate, reform, whatever he was promising, G&T. So pandemic gets rid of the test. Generally, everyone, even G&T parents, think there's something wrong with an opt-in 4-year-old test as sort of the only on-ramp into the G&T program. I know but so the pandemic did away with that. And, there's no alternative. No one has a good option. If we wanted to go back to the old model, but eliminate the 4-year-old test, what does that get replaced with? And there is no answer except this nonsense about every kid is going to get these extra resources and all of this stuff, which Virgil mentioned. This training should have been happening all along. This is an aspiration every teacher has. And I use this analogy in the group. I asked the teacher that was moderating, she said she taught from 1st grade up to 5th grade. I said, well, you're aspiring to do exactly what this plan is. And a fantastic teacher is really trying to do this. And best practices would be taking those exceptional teachers, figuring out what they're doing and trying to institutionalize it across every other teacher. It's not a replacement for G&T. And I use the analogy of, well, what if a kid in your class was 3 years behind in reading? Would you get extra services? Would there be an IEP? Would you be able to bring in someone to help teach to that individual child? Yes, of course. You can't center, as they kept saying, recenter a lesson. There's one center. If
Well,
every
if you could
kid,
conclude your remarks, as we'd like to get to other people. Sorry.
sure. So
Thank you.
anyway, if I had to sort of propose something, stop calling it gifted. It pisses off other parents. Every kid is special. We all want to acknowledge that, and do universal screening, and give an on-ramp later on in the elementary school to let kids be screened across the board. That would increase diversity.
Thank you, Paul. Appreciate your comments and your story, sharing your story. Next, we'll go to Julie Lubell.
Hey, so in my group, hopefully y'all can hear me. In my group, we started off with saying we didn't understand what Brilliant NYC was. It seemed like a marketing ploy. It ended with the same sentiment that we're not really sure what de Blasio was doing, that this was a marketing ploy. There was no blueprint, as the others have said, Paul just mentioned. There was no process defined. The main feedback from our group was that there really should be smaller class sizes, and there were people in our group that were, it was rather large actually, it was like 12 or 15 people, but that were teachers at private schools that had indicated research showed smaller class sizes are better versus doing these types of putting everyone together or who has different capability levels, because that doesn't bode well for the children. And there were various examples given, and I can even give one of my daughter who was in pre-K, went into kindergarten this year, and she was told by her teachers that she doesn't know the alphabet yet, but that's okay. They'll get her there by the end of the year. And she doesn't know how to count, but that's okay. They'll get her there. When her teacher last year was like, yep, by the end of the year, she knew her alphabet. Big letters, small letters, she could count to 50. And I know she did because I'm one of those parents. When I'm home, I watch and I observe. So it just goes to show, if you're in a class that's one of those mixed, I don't know what they're called, ICT, IEP, whatever, EIPP, whatever those words are. When you're in one of those mixed classes, if they're already struggling to figure out if a kid is on track, below, or whatnot, and then a special needs, they're clearly then never going to be able to figure out across 4 different levels or more. And that was the main feedback, is that these teachers are not going to be able to be equipped to do this, A, in the large class sizes that they have, and B, just because it is a special skill set to be able to identify, especially when you have very bright children. They often become disengaged and bored and become disruptive, which may appear that they are less than performing versus that they could do so much more and they have the potential. They just have decided to opt out. I also will say I agree with everything that T. Hunter, I don't know who you are, but everything you put in your chat. And as my mom was a New York State superintendent, she would have done the same thing. I would have done the same thing. I'd like to think I'm an intelligent person. Maybe I'm not, but I just don't see how expanding the G&T would be the wrong move. I do see how getting rid of it with this brilliant New York City is. And I will shut up now because I know Craig wants to get on to Motoko, I think it is. Sorry, Motoko.
Thank you, Julie.
Thanks, Julie. And Motoko, you should be unmuted now. And Faiza will be next after her.
Hi, thank you. Yes, so in our breakout room, I think about only 3 people, including me, spoke up. And the person who was moderating was Dan Waldeck, the assistant principal from Wagner. He was very nice, but he didn't actually really know about Brilliant New York City. He said he's a middle school, so he doesn't really know. So when I asked about, the first thing I talked about was that all these 5 points, the blueprints was good, but isn't that something that they've already been doing? And it really like to say that this is new and amazing and it hasn't been done is kind of an insult to teachers. I know that my kids' teachers are already doing that. Real world. I'm sorry, I lost the 5 points, but anyways, they have been doing that. So it was just really shocking to me that they are saying that this is new and brilliant. It should be doing that. And then the second point, which is really big for me, is that this is our school. PS33 is our school. There are 500 kids. It's not like okay, it's just one school. I mean, yes, it is just one school, but there are individual people. There are hundreds of families. We are community, and just telling us to just phase out half of the school for something that isn't even planned. I just think it's so irresponsible. So I asked what's going to happen to our school. Of course, he didn't know. I mean, he was a very nice person, but he of course didn't know, and he said he will relay that question. But it's just it goes to show. I mean, in the CEC meeting couple weeks ago, or maybe last month, the people from the district planning came, and they didn't know what's going to happen. I mean, they don't know how the space works with this brilliant New York City, and how are they going to implement? I just don't want our school to close for this political move. So that's all I guess I want to say. Thank you for listening.
I want to chime in a little bit.
Go ahead.
I chime in a little bit after Motoko, because Motoko and I were in the same room, coincidentally with Nadia as well, another member of this committee. We all happen to know each other quite well. Yeah, there was in once the parents started talking, there was room for literally 2.5 parents, right? Motoko, I didn't speak right away because I wanted Motoko and Nadia to be heard. And then they went to one other parent, and that was it. We were ingloriously called away. But this is more I could add, but I see Faiza waiting, and I'd love to hear what she has to say. Faiza, by the way, is lower lab PTA.
Hi all, sorry for the comment earlier that this is a waste of time. I was referring to Brilliant NYC. So I just wanted to talk very quickly because I know there are other people waiting after me. Our breakout session was moderated by Amy Hom. She's the principal for PS1M, and she's been at the DOE for 25 years. And yet when I asked very simple questions about how the plan was going to be implemented or what was going to happen, and I asked very specific questions, she had no answers. It was clear that the session we attended was nonsense. D2 parents are smart, they're involved, and they're represented by a very involved CEC, so thank you for representing us. We had 8 parents in our feedback group, and they appeared all to be in favor of G&T, and the ones who spoke included myself and a couple of others, and they were very firmly in favor of G&T. We started the session by tapping on the sticky note feature that they had, and all the sticky notes were very anti-Brilliant NYC, and then magically and unfortunately the sticky notes stopped working. And so I started recording, and I said, I'm going to be recording this. And she's just like, oh, let me get the sticky notes to work. I said, you need to memorialize what I'm saying. You need to record it. And I showed her that I was recording the session, and she's just like, oh, I'm trying to get them to work, but somehow they just didn't work. I agree with Paul that there is no answer for this except for this, there's no way forward on Brilliant NYC. This nonsensical PowerPoint that they presented could have been made by a 12-year-old over the weekend. It was not well thought out at all. And it's so clear to me that this is just political hogwash. I did find it offensive during the main presentation that even the DOE reps, this chap, Billy Gioia, I don't know what his name is, but he was giggling. Did anyone else notice this? He did not seem to be taking it very seriously. I see Paul nodding during the presentation, and I find that very disrespectful. You've got 300 plus parents on the session and you're not taking it seriously. What is that? This was just gaslighting, nothing else. I did not feel heard at all, and this was not useful. And a colleague and a friend of mine from our school, she actually saved a PDF of the Padlet. So she saved all of the things on that Padlet feature that they had, and we just went through it, and they're, I would say 75% in favor of keeping G&T. So I just wanted to make these observations. I don't want to waste time. This is the third meeting for most of us, but thanks guys for doing this.
I don't think it's a waste of time, Faiza. By the way, people should know Billy was in the District 3 engagement, and this is the guy that was several people claimed were yelling at District 3 parents, which he was. Yeah, I'd like to find out more from Kelly later what his actual role is. Some people said he might have consulted. I don't know him as a DOE person, but I don't know that that's true one way or the other. I will say when he was talking about the brain, that made my brain hurt. But let's move on. Let's move on to Rebecca, who I know from one of my other schools. Go ahead. There you go.
Oh, sorry, I gotta.
I know that was my fault. I muted for a second and then it locked me up. So I was in Daniela's breakout group, and I tried to talk first and intentionally didn't use the term G&T, just because I do agree that it's a polarizing term, and I didn't want to like turn the group in one direction against something that, when actually everybody might agree in the long term about how the classes should be organized. And we didn't actually discuss G&T really, I don't think, in the group, but people did seem to agree that it didn't make sense to put kids who are just learning their ABCs in the same class as kids who can read short chapter books. I think that everybody in the room was in agreement to that. And I'm hopeful that, with the new administration, we're gonna be able to continue something similar to the program we have, but perhaps with a model more like what Paul mentioned, where everybody is universally screened. I think that it shouldn't be too difficult to screen everybody in UPK. Like, we have all the kids in UPK already, find out what level they're at, and then place them accordingly in a proper kindergarten class, and let everybody be brilliant, give everybody the enrichment, but the kids that can learn and should learn and need to learn at an accelerated level, be able to do that, and maintain the current G&T programs as they are, but expand them, make sure that they reach to all the boroughs and fill everybody's needs, but at the appropriate level. Don't just say everybody gets the same everything, because we're not all at the same level and shouldn't be. And then one final note, I just want to mention, we are in the city. My family lives in this city by choice. We don't have to live here because of work anymore. We stay here for the education. And I'm still reeling over the meeting and some of the things I heard at the November 9th meeting, where people were describing their current sixth grader experiences. And this is not something that we would stay in the city for. And so I think that parents that are making that kind of decision, even for kindergarten next year, may choose to leave in large quantities if they're not able to put their kids at the correct learning level. So I do hope that we're going to be able to maintain the accelerated learning, expand it for everybody who needs to be in it, and screen everyone. And also thank you to this committee for all the hard work you're doing. It's very helpful.
Thank you so much. We're now going to go to Danielle Egorov, who is the Vice President of CEC2. Daniela, you want to say some words?
Yes, I want to first thank you all for being here another late night for us. I think a lot of parents are asking to like, what is the plan, right? What is the plan? And in my personal opinion, you are not getting a plan because this is not a plan. This was a stunt by our current mayor to launch his governor campaign. And I think it's important for us to know that there are politicians in our city that are willing to throw our kids under the bus for their political aspirations. And we need to stop that. So we need to keep the pressure to hold account for elected officials to serve every single student. With a budget of $38 billion for the DOE, they must be able to serve every single student. We are not going to allow Sophie's choice where you choose one kid over the other. No, we're going to serve everybody with exactly what they need. And it's very important to know what Casey mentioned here, that this plan has already been implemented in middle schools. And now we have kids who are literally being given a math textbook and being told to teach math to themselves while the class is covering other content, because that is the kind of accommodation that's being given for advanced learners. It's a joke. It's neglecting a kid, asking them to teach math to themselves. And so this cannot be allowed to happen. What the DOE should be focusing is getting every single kid to read, write, and do math at grade level. That's what they should be doing. And so I really want to encourage you all to keep speaking and keep the pressure, because that's how we're going to be able to do that, is really holding our elected officials accountable. And I think we do have a great opportunity with Eric Adams coming in. I think he has different ideas. Hunter put here his plan on the chat, which I encourage everybody to read that plan that he and the Bronx Borough President put together a couple of years ago. And he has already publicly said that he disagrees with this. And so let's make sure that we keep mobilized, that we keep making our voice heard, and that we are going to serve every single child in the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniela. And now we'll hear from the president of the CEC, Ben Morton. Ben, I know you want to say some words. Thank you.
Thank you, Craig. There's so many amazing things just listening to, parents here. I mean, Paul, you said some, I was taken aback how, for what you said, and Julie, and to me though, when we had the meeting, first of all, I was a moderator or a facilitator, and I don't know anything about this brilliant plan. You know as much as I do, you all. It was, we're just there to take your thoughts and pass it on, and hopefully someone reads it. And that's going to be my job, to make sure there's transparency there, that this is looked at, because regardless of where Brilliant goes, we need to know what parents are thinking, and someone needs to hold it accountable to them. But I don't know who Billy Gioia is.
Joya, I think.
Yeah, Joya. But he was scaring me. He was talking about he was talking about plasticity, or elasticity called, but neuroplasticity. And he's missing the whole point. Learning means you're doing something that you're not comfortable with. You have to push yourself. You have to challenge yourself. You have to use a different part of your brain. And he's like, we got to make everyone feel comfortable. And that was scaring me, because is he an educator? I mean, is this where the plan is going? And then he talked about, well, there's two parts to acceleration. Yeah, there's the acceleration above grade level, but there's also acceleration because the city, even pre-COVID, did too much remediation, and we don't go. The kids who are stuck below grade level, it's because they keep doing the same boring stuff over and over again. And there's studies now showing that you can't do that. These kids are trapped. So if we're now in a COVID hole where there's learning loss, when we didn't want to measure it a lot last year in December, I was talking to Richard Carranza, and saying, we have to measure it. And he's like, no, we can't use any of the tools that we have, which were iReady and MAP. But now they're using it, but so what? At least they're finally talking about acceleration, but the acceleration is to get away from the remediation. We got to get kids off of the hole they're in, and also so they're not bored of what they're doing. So thank God, at least they're talking about improving these schools. But and we got to advocate for that. We absolutely have to advocate, because it's just when the percentages are so high, getting ones or twos, they're using that as a measure of failure, or a measure of not grade level. I shouldn't say failure, but a measure of grade level, above or below. These are constructs. This is just the bell curve. It doesn't mean, your chances at 2 ever getting out of that are very low. There are studies out there. So it's at least the dialogue has changed. I just wish there were some DOE people here today just to hear from parents collectively, because there's just so much that was said that is powerful. And when you hear that, Paul, when you talked about, you spoke, was it a principal and they don't know the options, or they're not providing the options to other families? How do you expect? I mean, it's failure. We have a plan. We have a system that's not working. And I know Tunisia. I know you've spoken to that so brilliantly at our last meeting, and we have to move away from that. So and I know you're working on something, and hopefully we'll show that to the city and encourage. But let's use this opportunity, because this district, and hopefully other districts too, we're coming together and putting some really important. We're having an important discussion, but we have to encourage the city to move in the right way. Thank you so much, though. I've taken a lot of notes, and I just hope we can continue this momentum with our next mayor.
Thank you, Ben. Appreciate that. We have 2 more people who want to speak. The first one is Joanna, and Joanna, I'm going to unmute you.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm gonna be really brief because I have to put my kids to bed. In my professional life, I train teachers. I work at the Smithsonian, and so I train them to use the curriculum that we create. And teachers are really overwhelmed already, and I have a lot of concerns. I mean, I think parents are great advocates for students, but I think teachers don't have the same level of ability to speak about their own concerns and pressures that they're under. And I'm wondering if there's a way that we could speak with teachers, get a sense of their own concerns about it. This seems untenable, frankly, for teachers to engage in a new process, to work with a number of students that they're already working with so many different learning abilities, having to differentiate students according to this plan. Frankly, it seems untenable, and it doesn't seem like there's any way that the DOE is going to be able to retrain teachers in the next 9 months to be able to launch this with kindergarten by September. It just seems like it really seems like not only are we setting up students for failure, but we're setting up the teachers for failure. And I think getting some input from teachers and getting a sense of their own concerns and anxieties or whatever else they're feeling would be, would be in our best interest to kind of coordinate with them, because I really feel for them. I know how hard they work every day. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Joanna, for sharing that, and we appreciate your comments. The next person is Helen. Helen, you should be able to unmute yourself.
it works now. Can you hear me?
There you go. Yep, we can hear you fine.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. So the session just now, I was in the breakout room with the principal of PS 41, I believe, Kelly Shannon.
Yes.
There were like 6 or 7 parents in the room. 3 parents spoke. The tone was in support of accelerated learning and really questioning the new and so-called blueprint. So a parent actually asked in the session, asked Kelly if, as a school principal, she got more information about Brilliant NYC. And she said, no additional information beyond what was publicly announced. I think as Daniela said, there's basically no additional information. And I find that really concerning. So I happen to be able to export the Padlet conversation in the end about like, what's your biggest hope? What's your fear, etc. And I see, majority of the people are in support of accelerated rate learning and have expressed their concern with this new plan. So that's all. Thanks.
Thank you, Helen. I'm going to turn it back to Kush and Robin.
Anyone else? Anyone else want to speak?
I want to say thank you to everyone. I know it is so late and we appreciate so much. There are a lot of new faces here tonight and earlier. We appreciate so much all of you coming out and sharing your ideas. I hope you guys are, I saw Hunter put his information in. Please, I encourage you to stay in touch. I'll put my email in the chat as well. But please reach out to us because there are power in numbers. And as I promised you earlier, we will be giving this information. We will be passing it along. We will be compiling accurately your thoughts and your comments. We won't let them get away with not hearing us and knowing the damage that they're causing. So
I think actually, go ahead. Somebody else does want to speak.
Let's go to the
Rita Trugani, hold on, I know.
Yes, and I just unmuted you. Rita,
Hey,
you should be able to speak.
Yeah, sorry, Robin, I didn't want to cut you off. I just wanted to quickly put out, I have my older child's at TAG. So I think that's District 4, and I'm just still getting really acclimated to all the districts and everything. My younger one's in pre-K, that's I think it's in the District 2, which is how I got this email. And I was on the TAG, and I'm just, I don't know if you guys have the intel of what happened in that meeting, but there was one on Monday with the Dr. Christy De La Cruz. And it was just a TAG focused one to see, I guess that wasn't engage her. She's super nice. It's just, I think she's kind of pushed into a direction like how the feeling that we got from these panelists today. They don't really know too much about the plan. They're just kind of there to just hear us out. So she just put that together on Monday and basically said the same thing. Has no clue about the plan at all. So yeah, I mean, there's no plan. There's no blueprint. It was just us just hearing us out basically. So anyways, I just wanted to put that out there that, the feeling, I mean, I didn't get any different intel on that as well. So I didn't know if that was helpful at all.
Thank you, Rita. Rita, I think I know you from somewhere. Is it from the TAG event? Is it from the D4 event or no? You don't, did you sign up for one of these meetings before?
All of these, I now registered all of them and I'm getting very confused over like where, maybe we know each other, but I've seen you. I came to the last one.
Okay, that might be why. That might be why, and I think I came to the I went to the D4 event. Maybe I saw you there. I wanted to, if anyone else wants to go after me, please feel free to raise your hand.
Tunisia has her hand up.
Tunisia, go ahead.
I'm sorry, Kush.
Not a problem. Go for it.
I had kind of put in the chat, and I always say that District 2 is a first world country as far as all of the districts. Our schools do great just in general. And we have to understand that this plan doesn't affect just District 2. it affects every district in the city. And the issue is that in District 2, it's not a problem. It's like our kids are getting the things we want, where and getting some of the basics. But in other districts, these kids are not even get what we would consider the basics. So, when we're talking about like, acceleration and math and art and all these other really amazing things, these are basics for us, right? If you look at PS41 doesn't need gifted and talented. It's in the middle of the village. The people that live in that area are going to make sure that their kids have, the people are going to make sure that the school has. But when you live in Mott Haven and you live in Bushwick and Brownsville, and Washington Heights, the basics are food, the basics are paying rent, which is way too expensive. And so we need to understand that those schools are underfunded. The teachers are not getting the education that they should get. And so they're pushing this plan because of the fact that these schools are not getting what they should already be getting. And instead of saying, we're going to push to make every school like a District 2 school, they're saying, we're going to like make this brand new plan and give you all the things that we already have, right? Because everyone in here said we already get those things, right? Because other schools, this is not the basic. This is not the basic thing. Like having the things that we kind of are like just gelling on, like, yeah, we got this, we got this, we get this. That's not the basic in those schools. So they're telling us using a catchphrase that we messed up and we're not doing what we were supposed to do in these other schools. So now we're going to do it and pretend like we're bringing this great new program, when really they're just saying we're trying to figure out a way to do what we should have been doing the whole entire time and give kids what they have been deserving the whole entire time. Thank you.
Thank you, Tunisia.
Wow,
Does anyone...
that was a great comment. I don't want to say final comment because Lisa, I see your hands up, but that was excellent, an excellent point. Lisa, please jump in.
The other way now.
Yeah, and so we talked about that in our breakout room as well. And right when the breakout room was ending, I was saying, I was commenting that, to Tunisia's point, it shouldn't be a binary choice, that we shouldn't have to get rid of GNT in order for this brilliant plan to be implemented in those other schools. So just to give that feedback as well to the DOE, that like maybe you guys can do the brilliant plan, but also keep accelerated learning, because acceleration is something different than differentiation. And that's what our moderator said she was going to present to the group, but that didn't happen. And also just to the point about, we do have good schools in District 2, and the basics of what we have in District 2 might be ahead of what other districts have, but that still doesn't negate the fact that there are accelerated learners in District 2 who are still in classrooms that are not meeting their needs. And my daughter's one of them. She's in a good zone school. She has art and all these other enrichments that they want to present as the benefits of Brilliant, but her needs aren't being met because she's functioning above grade level in her zone school. So there's still, even in District 2, which is a first world district, there are still students who are learning and their needs are not being met, and those students still need acceleration. So I don't think it should be a binary choice. I think that, the failing schools need to be improved, and they need to bring up all the levels of schools throughout all the districts, but we should not be cutting G&T, and we should not be using that as a scapegoat for a problem that's much deeper and wider than what we are experiencing. Thanks.
Thank you, Lisa. Anyone else? I'll close with two comments, and I'll be brief. One, I saw some familiar faces tonight, but I saw a bunch of new faces tonight, and I think that's great. In my conversation with Danica Rux, and I sent her an email to this effect, I told her one thing. I said, in one way, I am thankful for these brilliant NYC gaffes, because every time they go out, they unite angry parents in a way I've never seen before and never thought possible. And I'll leave you all with that bit of hope. I had an email group that started off with like, I don't know, maybe 100 parents. It's approaching well over 1,000, on its way to 2,000. So I leave us with that ray of hope, and let's keep in touch. Let's keep motivated, and let's keep the pressure on. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night, all. Thank you so much for coming.